The New York Times has an entire front page article today, at least on their website, called How Mount Rushmore Became Mount Rushmore. The entire article is about how Mount Rushmore is evil. Mount Rushmore was built on land that belonged to the Lakota tribe and sculpted by a man who had strong bonds with the Ku Klux Klan. This is a tweet from the New York Times. It features the faces of 2 U.S. presidents who were slaveholders. So it's time to blow it up. Let me just note, the New York Times is built on land appropriated from Native American peoples for a handful of beads. That's the New York Times building. They're free to hand it back anytime they please. The New York Times was complicit in the Soviet regime to the point where one of their own reporters, Walter Duranty, won a Pulitzer Prize for covering for the Holodomor, the destruction of Ukrainian peasantry in the great collectivization of the early 1930s. The New York Times is a bleep heap, and it has been for a very, very long time. So when are they going to knock down their building and hand it back to the Native American tribes from whence it was taken? When are they going to do it? The answer is never, of course. But they are great people over at the New York Times. They never have to think about such things. All the statues have to be knocked down because, after all, those statues are emblems of a system before which there was nothing but Rousseauian state of nature in which everyone lived in peace and harmony, which is absolute ahistoric nonsense. By the way, worth noting about Mount Rushmore. I love this. They say Mount Rushmore was built on land that belonged to the Lakota tribe. Okay, the Lakota tribe gained that land in 1775 by expropriating it from another tribe, which in turn, historically speaking, had expropriated it from another tribe. So it turns out that conquest, human immiseration, has been the constant throughout all of human history, virtually every culture. But because we have now created the world's best people, the most morally wise people in the history of humanity, they can stand atop the pile and they can say that they are different and they know that they are products of an evil civilization, a particularly evil civilization. Over in Columbus, Ohio, they've now taken down a 22-foot tall statue of Christopher Columbus after the city's mayor called for it to come down. By the way, this is happening in Columbus, Ohio. They removed the Columbus statue in Columbus, Ohio, which I guess they will call it Flavorton, which is exciting news. They removed this statue. Why? Not because they're so concerned with the predations of Christopher Columbus as a human being. I don't see any FDR statues coming down these days, and FDR was responsible for the imprisonment of 100,000 Japanese Americans. Okay, but Christopher Columbus has to come down. Why? Specifically because of what he was put up for. See, this is the thing. Statues are generally erected. Okay, not Confederate statues, which are a bit of a different story, which I'll explain in a second. Statues that are coming down now, the ones that are really controversial, the Columbus statues, the Washington statues, the Thomas Jefferson statues, those statues, the Lincoln statues, those are erected in tribute to the good things that sprang from the actions of the men who are being honored with the statue. When you erect a statue of Christopher Columbus, it is not a statue of a saint. It is not an icon. People don't go to that statue and worship, right? There's a difference. People go to many different places on earth where there are statues of saints and pictures of saints, and they worship there. Right? The iconography is a long history in human worship. Erecting a statue of Christopher Columbus, nobody was walking by that statue and bowing their head in prayer and saying, "Pray on my behalf, Christopher Columbus." No one was doing that because he's not a religious figure. Christopher Columbus was an important figure because he brought Western civilization to the Western Hemisphere. This is, for civilization, a very good thing. That does not mean that it came without brutality or that it came without cost, because brutality and cost are endemic to human nature. But to disown Western civilization, which is really what you're trying to do when you tear down a statue of Columbus, because let's all be frank about this. The people who are tearing down the statues of Columbus, it's not because they are reading the journals of 16th century Spanish monks criticizing Christopher Columbus. That is not why they're doing this. They're not reading de Las Casas and then going, Christopher, it turns out he's a bad guy. That's not what's happening here. What's happening is they don't like the West, and therefore they are trying to tear down the symbols of the West, including Christopher Columbus. It's why the Boston Art Commission just voted unanimously, not like 5-3, they voted unanimously to remove the Emancipation Memorial in Park Square on Tuesday night. The Emancipation Memorial in Boston is a direct copy of the Emancipation Memorial in Washington, D.C., a statue designed by a Charleston, Massachusetts native named Thomas Ball and dedicated in 1876, paid for by freed slaves and spoken at the inauguration of by Frederick Douglass. This is removed. Why was this removed? Not because of why they say it was removed. So the people who are doing this, they say that this was removed because people are uncomfortable with the statue and its reductive representation of the black man's role in the abolitionist movement. This is according to Mayor Marty Walsh. That is not why it's being removed. The reason it's being removed because anybody who perceives that America had a role in ending slavery, even in America, or that America did a good thing in ending slavery, or that Abraham Lincoln did a good, humane thing in ending slavery, is not ripping into the system. Lincoln, because he was president, is a symptom of an evil system. It doesn't matter that he fought within the system to end the system of slavery. The system itself is the evil. And so if you are an advocate for the system, if you believe that the system actually is good and that we strayed from founding principles, well, then that makes you bad too. You are now part of the system. You are just as evil as that dad that they were talking about in Slate magazine. You're the bad. Right? This is the great fight. You want to talk about the cultural war that is happening right now in the country? This is the cultural war that is happening in the country. A post-American America versus an America that does root itself in Americanism. That, as we approach July 4th, that's what this battle is all about. I'm mentioning, I have a book coming out July 21st. It is all about this, How to Destroy America in 3 Easy Steps. The destruction of America's culture, history, and philosophy. Those things are continuing apace. That is what we are watching right now, tearing down America about our ears. Now, other countries have experienced post-European Europe, right? There's something it was a major crisis for Europe. It led to a massive migration of people who are not necessarily instilled with European values and has led to tremendous culture clash, waves of crime, serious living problems in places in Europe, for sure. A country that cannot stand up for its fundamental principles or refuses to stand up for its fundamental principles puts itself at risk. To take an example, in Israel, this was a big issue. In Israel, there was sort of a post-Zionist period in Israel where a bunch of people decided that Israel, well, maybe, should we have had it? Should Israel have been a thing that we established? Maybe we shouldn't have established it after all. And the voters in Israel started electing very left-wing governments that apologized for Israel's existence. The result was that Israel's enemies were emboldened. Israel's enemies emboldened, then proceeded to kill a lot of Israelis, which resulted in a snapback where Israelis recognized, oh, wait, maybe there's a reason we exist. And so now virtually the entire Israeli populace is center-right. The same thing is happening right now in the United States. We are living through a period of post-Americanism America, where generations of Americans have been taught it is a sign of virtue to disown your Americanism. You are a citizen of the world. You're a citizen of goodness, above and beyond any culture that created you. And you have to your sign of strength is, as Shelby Steele says, dissociation. If you dissociate from the American system, that is a sign that you are powerful. Now, understand that is not a risk. That is not a risky scenario for you. You get rewarded for that in the culture. This is why I say it's important to note that counterculture is now the culture. There is no risk in saying any of this. There's no, if you go out there in public and you say things like, Mount Rushmore was expropriated Native American land, so if people say it should be torn down, we should think about it. There is no risk in the culture for you to say that. If you say right now in the culture, Mount Rushmore is a signifier of the greatness of many American presidents because America is indeed a great country and the American flag stands for freedom, there is a shot you will be fired from your job at many corporations these days. I'm getting notes from people all over the country right now that if you simply say, yes, I believe that Black Lives Matter, but the police are by and large virtuous people attempting to keep law and order, and if they disappear, people die, you could get fired for that. Okay, we know what the poles of power have shifted in the culture. Republicans focus so much on winning people always wonder in the Republican Party, I get this question all the time. Why is it Republicans keep winning elections and yet the culture keeps shifting to the left? Because you're focusing on the wrong battle. This is not the correct battle. You can win as many elections as you want. If the ground keeps shifting under your feet, you're just shifting the deck chairs on the Titanic. That's all you're doing. You need to shore up the hole at the bottom of the Titanic. That means re-educating yourself about the United States and not buying into the lie that America is uniquely evil. This video is sponsored by Blinksale. It is the revolutionary invoicing software for small businesses. Spend less time billing, more time making the money with Blinksale. Go down to the link in our description and give it a click.